How's it going, everyone? Scott MacKay here from Airbrush Down and Dirty Tricks and Thin Air Graphics. You all mostly know me as an automotive custom painter. I do teaching and seminars, do some fine art work, but what you don't know is, as a hobby, I've often done figure model building and things like that. So I was really excited when I was asked by Medea to use their NuWorlds Paint, which is a new tabletop gaming paint and scale model paint that's on the market. This is one of the figures here we're going to be working with. And so this is plastic, it's been assembled. And we're going to take it from this to this. I'm going to show you how to go through the whole process, all the layering and how I did it, and how awesome the NuWorlds Paint performed. Topics we're going to cover on this video is obviously going to be how to spray and base your project with a black, how to do a tonal with the airbrush by going like a top-down light source. Then we're going to do a little bit of metal effect. We're going to do some dry brushing. We're going to do some different wash colors. And we're going to go from some solid to metallic and back and forth. We're going to use brush techniques, dry brush techniques, airbrush techniques, a little bit of everything. I'm super stoked to work on this. It's really going to be a fun project. And let's get going. We take our Zenith Black. Give it a good shake. I'm going to go direct into the airbrush. Very little bit. This is why I really prefer this over, say, a spray can, is because even a big, tall spray can really only has a few ounces, 3, 4, depending on the size can, ounce of paint in it. The rest is just propellant. So with airbrush, you're just using very little amounts of paint. And because it's going on so light, you're not losing any detail in your figure. So I'm going straight out. I have my air pressure around 25 PSI. And this is a 0.35 nozzle, standard Eclipse nozzle, which is a pretty standard airbrush size. Atomizes really nice. I'm going to just pull back the trigger lightly and do some light passes. You don't want to glop it on super wet. This is all really good practice too, if you're going to do a lot of airbrushing on your figures. And in my tutorials and stuff, I plan on doing a lot of airbrush work, as opposed to brush fades and gradient fades with wet on wet paint. I'm going to be doing it with the airbrush. You give that a second to dry. I'm going to give it one more light pass. So 2 medium wet coats is always better than 1 heavy, watery wet coat. And your figure will look a lot better. Let's dry it, flashed off. You know, it flashes dull. I'm going to give it one more pass. I think we are good. Two light passes. I put way too much Zenith Black in my cup. I probably used less than half of what I put in. So I'm just going to return that back to my bottle. That's why I waste it. And I'll let that set up a little bit, and then I'm going to do a tonal white over it, and then I'm going to put a little of the mirrored steel over the piece to give it a little reflective nature, so when I go to paint the armor, it has a nice sheen to it. So now we're going to do the tonal white. Basically, what we're going to do is going to go really light. We're going to do a top-down light source. So I got my airbrush all cleaned out. I'm going to take my Zenith white and give it a good shake. I'm just going to put a little bit in, very little bit, barely even see it. And just like the light source, we're going to go top down. And I'm going to go very sparingly because I want to keep a lot of contrast in the painting. So I'm going to top down and I'm just going to lightly hit them. Just a little bit, trying to leave a lot of that dark. A little bit of tone there, keeping it somewhat dark. Then I'm just going to get a little bit on this guy's, you know what, nah, I'm going to go really tight up in his face here. There's a little demon coming out of him. And that's it, just to pop it. Cool. Now we have a good tone, and when I get down here to the armor, chrome, like this knee, you can hit it a little heavier. I think that'll be really, really cool. We can tip that sword. Now we're going to bring up the mirrored steel. So you want to really give it a good shake. And once you put it in your airbrush, you want to be spraying it, pretty quick, especially in a gravity feed, because all these particles, if you let this brush sit for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, all those little microparticles will flow down into the fluid nozzle. And if you leave it long enough, it can actually, kind of fill it up. And there can be a bear to get out because they'll compact themselves. So a little bit of the silver. And you're going to spray nice, very light passes. This stuff is very strong. You don't need a lot. To get a little closer, I'm going to actually pull off my air cap, my crown cap, my airbrush. I can see the needle. This time you got to be real careful because you don't want to bump your part and bend your needle. So we're going to give the end of his staff a chrome effect. So do a light pass on that, and you should see it change. You should almost see it light up in comparison. So watch this side, it looks like a little flat, gray, and then a light pass. And you just see it light up. It almost looks like chrome. This stuff's super strong, amazing for armor. I'm going to put it on his sword as well. And when we use some color washes or light shading over this, you're going to see that sword really pop. Now I'm going to try to get down to one of his armor. I'm going to get the knees and his boots. And definitely hit the chainmail and the kind of the eye here. Okay, notice now that's starting to get a more reflective quality. Same thing here. So now you'll see we got all that reflective nature going on. Like watch this piece of armor right here on his hip. It'll go from looking very white to having that chrome shine. And when you put that wash over it, or a color tone, it's going to just look spectacular. I'm trying to keep it off the guy as much as possible. The little demon coming out. I'll put a little bit on his helmet. And I think that's about it, because that's a little skull there, armor here. And that just looks really cool. So now you have some, gray tone, white tone, and then you have these chrome tones. I'm actually going to put a little bit of, I'm going to tip these feathers just a little bit. Just to aid in it. And maybe the tip of the horn. Nice tone on tone. Still finding some armor I want to bring out. That mirrored steel. And when we go to color, it's just going to be spectacular. So now we're going to get to painting. We're going to mix up our first color, which is the base color for the armor, which is like a teal. So I'm going to mix equal parts of white. I'm going to use the Impenetrable green and the Impenetrable light blue. Equal parts of this is going to be a nice teal, and this is what I'm going to use for the base color for the armor, and then we'll tone it with some colors after that, and we'll do a few other colors like the little demon guy. He'll go with like a bone white, and then we'll start doing some washes, some colors, and we're just going to get into it. I'm going to get a few different brushes, some fine point rounds, and maybe some dry brushes, and we will just get started. But let's start first with our base color by mixing these equal parts. I'm going to mix these into a little medicine cup, or you can do it directly on your palette, your wet palette, however you want to do it. I'm going to mix a small amount. I'm going to do like just a little bit of each. like 4 or 5 drops of each. It's going to be enough paint for this character. And of course, if you're doing a whole series of these, you can mix up or just record the colors. And I'm just going to take an old brush. And I'm just going to mix up. And this is going to be our initial tone. I might actually lighten that up with 2 more drops of white. And that is going to be great. This color is going to give us a nice plus and minus. We can add some of the impenetrable darker blue. We can add white. We can add a little yellow to make it more teal. And we can tone the armor as we go. So I'm going to get a fine point round brush. And we're going to do the armor. All right, I just got a nice fine point brush. And this is straight out of the bottle, no extra reducer. If you want to make it more of like a wash color, you could add a little bit of the wash medium to it. I'm going to go with it full strength right now, and then I might take some of the tinting colors afterwards and add a little wash medium to it. But right now, I want good coverage, so let's get started. All right. I'm going to look over my guy here and figure out where everything's going to be. And I think I'm going to start right here with the caps. And let's go. This piece has a lot of nooks and crannies, a lot of raised gold ridges. Like, let's look at this kneecap right here. And the nice thing about all these ridges is it almost gives your brush point to rest into and get that color in. And if you get a little bit on the outside, it's no big deal. The gold is going to hide a lot. We're just going to start with this nice tone and just keep working our way around the model. And if you get a little too much on there, you can palette some off. Just take a little extra off. You can always take a brush with water too and take any excess off at this stage if you got a little on areas you don't want while it's still wet. There we go. And just take your time. This leg's a little tricky to get into. We got in there nice. Got legs looking good. The better I get it now, the less work I need to do later to clean it up. So let's get back here. Look at the back of this leg. And even a lot of this stuff, you know, this background stuff will wash out or get kind of covered. So don't stress too much about it now. Especially on like the undersides and the back sides of things. Get right here on the arm gauntlets. Very cool, very cool. Let's get down here on the hips. We even get in here. We're definitely not going to see it, but I know it's there now, so I might as well take the time to just get in there. Just hit that plate behind here. You see it's all starting to dry to that nice matte finish, and that allows you to see if you have coverage. You can go back in and hit anything from there. Right, let's move on to this other leg. What I'm already really liking about this paint is it covers really well, but it doesn't build like thick and gloppy. It dries nice and flat and you don't lose any detail. When we get later on into the washes and stuff like that, you'll see that the paint does an excellent job there as well. Little tricky spots to get into. That little piece on the armor I don't want. Just a wet brush and just smear it off. The base, I'm not worried about that whatsoever. Okay, so this eye here, this little armor plate right here, it's mostly gold, but it's got little bits of blue here, So we're going to get that now. Any little gold we'll be able to get around the edge later. Great. All right, let's get the chest plate here. A lot of little details, a lot of nooks and crannies. It's a good thing the paint is flowing well. This is what definitely makes projects worse when they're really tricky, is the product's not working well or as expected. I've been doing paint work for most of my life, and I've been doing it professionally for 25 years in custom motorcycles and custom cars, like I've said before. And it's a very detailed industry with a lot that can go wrong. There's one thing I learned in that field is good tools and good products really make all the difference. I'm going to put this back into the holder. They're looking good. So I'm trying to leave as much silver as I can because the silver is going to be a nice undercolor for the gold. Because they're both an actual metallized paint. We're almost through the base tone. Oh, that one a little too heavy right there. We're going to come back in with the gold and we'll get that little detail in the armor. Let's get up onto the helmet. It's a little tighter in here. I'm going to get a smaller brush. Really small brush to get in here. I'm going to definitely get something on his claws, but they're on top, so we'll be able to wash him in afterwards. Let's get in here. We'll give it a good look over. And then we can add some other tone to it. Very cool. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to give it a little extra tone. I'm going to take the Impenetrable blue. I'm going to put a dot on my palette. And I'm going to put a dot of my wash medium down. I'm going to tint just a little darker. Same color I've been working with. And this, I'm going to go in and just hit the bottoms. Kind of the opposing sides of some of the armor. This is kind of just going to be like a pre-wash tinting. Just to give it a little some extra shading. I'd rather do this now than later, because I can control this a little bit more than a wash. We can just kind of hit those darker sides. Just give it a little extra tone. Remember, it's the same base color, so we can always bring a little more of that back in and just kind of almost do a wet blend. And at the end, we'll probably do some highlighting just some edge lighting. If you want to do any lightening up right now, you can just take some white, mix them into the color. Some of the edges, like right here, you can do a little highlighting, which usually we'll wait to the end for this, but I just want to test a few things out now. And go from there. I'm just going to work around this, get to a happy point, and we will set up for the next color. We'll work on the little demon guy coming out. That's going to be a pretty simple one. And a few other areas we'll start toning some colors and doing some washes. Okay, so the next color I want to do is I want to get the little creature coming out of his body here. And so I'm going to start with some Old Bone White. That's going to be a nice color to do some washes over. So let's just get him. His hand. There's his arm coming up here. Side of his face. This is the arm. A little too much. Pull it off, it'll dry nice. Yeah, this will be an okay color too. Actually, you know, I was gonna keep the horn a little metallic at the tip, so we're just gonna kind of blend that in. We're going to be doing some airbrush effects up in here later. For now, we'll just tone that in, give it a little texture. Get up here on the rest of the arm. This little guy right here we're going to hit. That's actually going to have a little bit of a green tone to it. We can bring out some white right now. There's a couple little skulls here. Let's get him. I believe that's a little bird skull. I could be wrong. Yep, there's another little one right here. I can almost dry brush him. And once this dries, we'll move on to the next, and this guy will get like a brownish wash over his body, and it'll bring out all those nice little details. Alright, so that's dried up pretty well. Good for a wash. We're going to do a little bit of the red and purple in here, maybe some orange yellow. So let's start with the feathers. It's going to be red. And I'm going to put a little drop of purple in these guys next to it. Just because I don't want it so pure red. It's nice as you can just kind of get in here and let that dark tone do its job. And I think for the end, I'm going to do a little airbrush effects on the tips. These are going to have some purple on it mainly, but I'll get a little red on there before I go to the purple. I'll go right to the purple on the bottom. I'm going to add a little bit of white into it just to get a little extra coverage. And with some dry brushing and some airbrushing, some washes later, these feathers will get a lot of detail. We're just going to start, get this kind of purple tone. Because I'll do a purplish wash on the backbone here, and that'll all blend together very nicely. So just working all our base tones of everything before we get down to the final nitty-gritty details. We're going to get some yellow and orange inside here in the eyes. We'll get that red in the sword. But I think I'm going to do a little airbrush of the yellow. I'll start with a little red down here in the bottom. No, actually that's going to be orange. So we're just going to leave that alone for right now. I'm going to do some yellow in here in a sec on these eyes. We'll bring a little bit of that on the bottom, and then I want to airbrush shade a little bit of red up into there, just to give it a nice transition. The nice thing about this paint is you can go from brush to airbrush without any extra thinning or reducing or anything like that. It'll go straight. Of course, you can reduce it if you have a need, depending on your airbrush size or how you like to paint, or you want to do very light coats. You can totally do some reduction if necessary. Nice, one step closer. The gold at the end is really what makes this guy pop. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a little bit of the yellow, like a yellowy orange in the eyes. In the eyes in here, right here. I'm going to put some on the sword. I'm going to do a little airbrush fade right up here on the tip of the sword. I can get my compressor turned on. All right. Let's get our impenetrable yellow on our palette. And I want to get it a little bit of chrome yellow too. I'm going to take a medium-sized brush. Now, I'm going to get right in. Well, I might need a little bit of white. Just get in here on the eye. Get in here on this eye. It's going to be all gold around it. Now I want to get the base of the sword to be this kind of yellow because I want to airbrush tone over it. So now we're going to just hit it. I'm not going to worry too much about here because I'm going to blend up there with the airbrush. I'll show you that in a sec. I'm going to add a bit more white into it just to get a little better coverage. That guy, yep, that eye's good. Oh, there's another eye up here on the shoulder. Let's get him. Because I want to start doing the gold after I get to the stage all set. And the gold is where this guy really starts to come together. It starts to frame everything out, gets everything set up for the dry brushing and the washes. So I got my airbrush. Actually, what I'm first going to do is I want to go with the chrome yellow into my airbrush. And the key really is to make sure the paint's dry. You don't want to be spraying the tip, at the figure. You want to be kind of spraying it away so you don't get too much overspray. And this is kind of a fiery sword, so a little bit of glow is not going to be a problem. Let's see, I can slowly tip that sword to glow. Same thing here. And notice I'm kind of spraying away from the figure, so the spray is just going into the background and it's not getting overspray. And if it gets a little bit here, we can come back and touch that up. But having the blend is always just really cool with the airbrush. So now I'm going to go with the orange, the Impenetrable orange, and then we're going to go to the red. We're going to stay further up the blade. Just get that really nice. Like I said, if you get a little overspray here, it's just kind of got out of the glow, but it's easy enough to get rid of. Really cool fade. It's really tight. If you want to get in tighter, you can pull the cap off here. Just don't touch it because you will bend the needle. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a few drops of purple and red to just darken up the tip. And the rest we can do with brush effects. And I think I am going to go almost like a very dark purple. We'll use vascular violet added to this. And that should really darken the tip. And then we can do some highlighting on the edge towards the end. And again, I'm not reducing, I'm not doing any special mixtures. This is straight out of the bottle, the same paint I was brushing with. You could even use this color on the tips of the feathers if you want. Just be real careful. I'm going to be doing a wash in here, so you can do a little bit of that purple tone right inside there. What I'm actually doing is I'm actually spraying into the purple area. You're just letting the overspray of this color get up onto the body and get a nice little tone. So I haven't decided if I'm going to keep that look of the glowing sword. I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to just touch this area up. But if you wanted to do that glow like the sword was on fire, this would be perfect. And you would just save that towards the end and let that overspray kind of get there. But easy fix. And so we'll do a little edge lighting on that sword, and it's going to look spectacular. Yeah, we can put a little bit on them feathers right there as well. Coming together nicely. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go back in with this base tone I mixed up earlier. I'm just going to hit these again. And the gold will take care of the rest. Easy fix. It's almost a golden color in here right now. I like to get all this stuff taken care of before I move on to the gold. Because once I do the gold, I like to have everything kind of in place. So I want to show you all a nice quick tip. I want you to take a look at the sword right here. You see how I have that nice center edge lighting? Now, a lot of times guys do that with a brush. They take the side of a brush and a color and do it. But if you have trouble doing that, I'm going to show you another quick trick. And this is something I learned. I do this a lot in the automotive world. So because I painted this with yellow, then orange, then red, then the purplish brown, and you have the white and silver underpainting, you have a brighter tone under there. So if you look really close, what I did is I just took the razor blade and I just basically just guided it. And you basically just taken off the top layer of paint. So I'm going to show it to you on the back side. Okay. So see there's nothing there. And I'm just going to take it. This is not a, the blade's a little dirty, but I'm not going straight down. I'm just kind of pitching it and just dragging it up. And you can see it creates that nice natural highlight. So if you have trouble brushing it, try this trick, see if it works for you. All right, so we want to get a little bit more. This claw has a little bit more purple in it than the gray that's there, and then we'll dry brush some over it. So I'm just gonna hit this guy. Might be a little hard to see. I want to make sure I get the purple inside. There we go. Yep. The same purple we use down here. The nice thing about this paint is I use this on my wet palette, and the next day after I close my wet palette up, all the paints are still usable and performing well. So that's another really good kind of benchmark for the NuWorlds Paint. And there's a little bit on these claws here, that same purple. Okay, good. Thumb comes under here. Okay, so I'm going to get this horn. I'm probably going to do some, like I said, I'm probably going to do some airbrush effects on this, but I just want to kind of brighten it up now with this Old Bone White. And then the wash colors can really take effect over it. That's the same color I used in here, which if I feel I missed anything, I go here, and there's a little bit of a skin under here. Make sure we just get that, because we're going to use a brown wash in here. And I think we are good. All right, so I'm going to prepare my washes. I'm actually going to do 3 different washes. And what I find, you can use just a regular, cup palette, or, mixing cups, or even just do it on your wet palette for one figure. If you're going to be doing a bunch, these little guys are great. You can order just a whole bunch of these offline. They're just, remember the paint by number buckets when you were a kid? That's basically what these are. So I like to use these when I'm doing figure. And what I want to do is I'm going to use just a little bit of wash medium in each one. And I'm literally going to do 2 drops of the colors. So for my blue wash, I'm going to go over the teal. I'm going to use Code Blue. I'm just going to put literally a drop in on that. For the scales, I'm going to do like a purple wash. I'm going to use Impenetrable Purple. And for all the browns of the skin and some other pieces, I'm going to use the Decay. And there you go. I'm going to close these up. Give them a little mix. Now, I have the washes I need. Let's give it a shot. The first one I'm going to do is I'm going to do the purple. So I grab my brush. I mean, not purple. I'm going to use the blue wash. I'm just going to try it. See, that one drop is just like perfect. And we're going to start washing over all these blue areas. You can take some excess off. See how it's starting to get that nice tint? This is what's great about this process is you can make anything you need You already have all the components, so less stuff to buy. A little bit more flexible. Let's get that in there. Let's go around the whole thing, then we'll start letting it settle. And if we don't like something, we can use a wet brush, just take it off in some areas if it's getting too heavy. Or even just a slight dry brush, you can just kind of come in and just pull it off. This wash medium is really nice. What I like about the medium, it's just strong enough where it pulls nicely against subtle edges, but it doesn't run all over the place. So it's very nice and controlled. Nice to manipulate around. And now I'm going to get up here on the helmet. Try to keep it in frame. Get under those claws a bit. That's looking good. Yeah, it's really starting to make the armor pop a lot more. That's the color I wanted. Looking great. Get right here. You can see how it's nicely settling into the edges of the armor and filling in those crevices, crevasses, however you choose to say it. Now as it dries, the sheen will go down. It won't be as glossy as this. I typically finish all my pieces with a matte top coat when I'm done, so I don't worry too much about anything like that. All right, that's good. We're gonna let that settle for a little bit. And while that's settling, the purple ready, and just gotta clean this brush. Let's get a little bit of purple. I want purple wash on this armor. And just watch how that works. That works beautiful. Fills in that armor nicely. If you see that metallic undertone from the steel, just really pops. Really has a great look to it. Let me get up under here. That's what's nice about using that steel at the beginning when you're doing your tonal, because you can get that reflective quality. There's a little fish scale chainmail in there. And I'm also going to use this purple up in here. I'm going to let that settle in. And I might go a little darker. I think we're good. Look at that. Love the way that looks. Remember, we can do a little dry brushing, or just, you can actually use like a little erasing. And you can use one of these, which these are, it's like a paint puller. You can actually just hit some of the tips if you want to bring some of that down. It's not really necessary, it just works so well naturally. And there, oh, there's a little bit more in here. Oops, got too much. Let's get that off there. No big deal, no problem. There we go. I'd like a little bit more into here. We'll let that pool up and settle for a little bit. Awesome. Really coming along nicely. Close that up. That's what I love about these things, because now I can kind of keep these washes. Like I said, if I'm doing a whole army, I don't have to do all the washes at once. Or I don't have to buy a whole bunch of different washes. I can make it as I go. Okay, so now I'm going to wash some brown over the guy here. And that's going to tone that old bone flesh color to a little bit more of that decay brown. I was almost wanting to use a blue, but because I wanted kind of like a blue undead skin. But I think the brown works really well. I think I mixed a little, got a little purple coming down from the other. Let's take a dry brush, kind of get that out of there. I'm going to add one more drop for strength on this brown, because I'm going to probably use this brown on the gold later, or I might make a different brown. Get in here. I'll just let that wash. Finish up. And we are going to let this all settle in. As soon as I do this horn here, man, those washes make all the difference. Just brings in so much extra character. There's a nice stain right here on that horn. It's done, filled in the mouth really well. Oh, you know what? I want to hit these skulls. I'm going to have one more wash up inside here. And we are almost ready for the gold effects. And we'll wrap this puppy up. We'll do a little dry brushing, and we'll be good to go. You know what, for this, I'm going to darken up that purple with, I'm going to just put a little black on my brush. Just get that in here a little darker. Let that settle. If I have to, I can just take a paper towel and just wipe away any excess. Or just take, like I said, take a dry brush. It can be a cheap brush. It just wipe the top. So that'll almost give you a dry brush look. We are looking good. All right, I'm really happy with this. Now I'm just going to put a little gold on here, paint the staff of, well, the shaft of the staff with a little brownish black, and then we're going to hand brush all the detail gold. I'm going to take our Gauntlet gold, get it good and mixed up. I'm going to put just a little bit in the airbrush. It doesn't take much. And I'm going to make sure I don't get overspray on the character. So we're just going to spray away. You basically, I'm tilting that away so all the airbrush spray is going towards that way. I'm going to just lightly. Just slowly hit that. I'm not going to worry if I get a little bit down the shaft there. On this side, just watch that. Nice, subtle. And the rest we can brush on, but I really want to get that gold to look like gold. And spraying it yields the best results. And then we can brush the rest of the effects. So I have my Gauntlet gold. Just put it into a little, cup here. And just start hitting all this detail. It's a lot of work hitting all these little pieces, but the end result will just really make this amazing. Just put a little bit in there I don't want. A little paint puller, just pull that out. this, it's almost like dry brushing, just a littlest bit. It's starting to look really cool. And if I have to cut back in with a little blue, I can. Like with anything, there's usually a back and forth that needs to happen. But the good thing is, nothing's unfixable. Just a little time and patience, and everything works out just as you want it. We'll give some of that base, we'll give that base some attention at the end. I don't worry about that. I got a little too much down there, that's fine though. I'm going to put a little gold on these wraps as well. Almost a little dry brush effect. Let's see if I can get in here. Now it's a little shiny right now, but when I give it a matte finish top coat, it will be awesome. All right, I'm happy with that. So there's one thing I want to do before I dry brush. I want to just do a little soft blend on the feathers with an airbrush. So I took a drop of white, the Zenith white, and a drop of Impenetrable blue, just made like a little baby blue. And I just want to kind of just fade out the tip of them feathers. Just like that. Just to give it a little something before I dry brush. Yeah, that looks good. That wash is still setting up a little bit, so while that's happening, let's take a little bit of Zenith Black for right now. And I'm going to put some attention to that base just for now. Let's take it off here. let's let that all dry out for right now. All right, so I'm just gonna palette out a little bit of white, a little bit of white here, a little bit of orange, and just get a little dry brush for here. And I want to do a little bit of blue. Down towards here. Take a lot off. There we go. A little bit in there. A little bit in here. And that's the ticket. Gives them feather effects. I think this is going to bring this guy to a close. I'm going to go through it, just give it a once over, put a little top coat, and I will show you the absolute done finished result. One top coat that I love and I use is Createx UVLS Clear. They have a gloss and they have a matte. You know, I prefer the matte finish, as I see most tabletop gamers do. So, UVLS Clear, the nice thing about this, it can be reduced if need be, but you can also use it straight. It dries beautifully, evenly flat. It's directly compatible with this paint. And if you don't like the sheen that the wash gives, this will take it right out and protect your model from wear and tear from all your traveling around, and it'll be good to go. So I'm just going to put a little UVLS matte in my airbrush and just give it a nice even coat. Doesn't need much. Now it'll go down glossy. I usually do one nice medium wet to wet coat. You don't need to like flood it on there. Just a nice even coat. And the nice thing is, if you want to go back in after and paint, you surely can. Just re-top coat. Just get it nice and even. Especially on the wear and tear parts where you're picking it up by. I usually give it a little extra coat. I'm going to let that dry out. And that, my friends, looks killer. With NuWorlds Paint, it has been a blast. The paint was phenomenal to work with. Being able to go direct to surface, to do the metallized painting, or you can do non-metal, I forget the term, non-metal metal painting. I could be wrong on that. But you can do it all with this, and to be able to turn any colors into a wash is outstanding. Super simple system to use. It's very affordable because you're not buying a million components. And like I said, I think the biggest thing, and we talked about at the very beginning, was the fact that all of these colors are direct to surface. You don't need a bunch of can primer at the beginning to get started. And here he is, the final piece. In all its glory, done, painted, through and through with NuWorlds Paint by Medea. Really had a blast working with this paint. Really had a blast doing this figure and the tutorial. Learned a lot. Going to be doing a lot more of this in the future. Really love the way the paint covered. Really like the fact that it didn't fill in all the details of these small figures. Goes on, airbrushes straight out of the bottle, brushes straight out of the bottle. It's one of the first times I've ever had that experience. Really happy with it overall. I hope you guys give it a shot, try it, see what you think, and I really think you'll be happy with it and be impressed with the product and the paint and what you can achieve with it. I know I am. Stay tuned for more in the future. Thank you for checking it out. Thank you, Medea. Thank you, NuWorlds, and let's see some more creations. Have a good one, everyone.